Oh. All right. Hey, everybody. I think we're live. I'm gonna flip over and just wait to see if my face shows up there. I know we're buffering a little bit. How's everybody doing tonight? There we go. Great. Let's see if we're having issues here. Good. Everybody see me on there? All right. Cool. All right, so let's jump in. I think we're good. We've got it's been quite a while since we've done anything specifically for Fallen Earth. I think the last one we did was towards the end of November, early December last year. So we're coming up on nearly a year, and yeah, it's been too long. So thanks for joining. Hopefully the stream is going to hang in there here. I feel like we're having some buffering or some bandwidth issues, but hopefully we'll hang in there. So what I want to do first is spend some time. Got the questions that the community posted. Thank you guys for putting the questions together for me. I've got them up here. I'll go through them in a bit, but a lot has happened in the last year, so I figured I'd kind of lead in with that, talk about that, and then I literally 20 minutes ago recorded some video, just sort of got on my development version of the new servers and ran around and I'll save that. We'll show that off. But it's I'll preface it right up front. It's going to look mostly identical to what you guys see today. Um, the is it the soundtrack? Because I have that muted. Yeah. Tim, can you pipe down the background music? Maybe 30%. Okay, great. We'll see if that gets better. All right. We're gonna wait. Just make sure. There we go. Excellent. Um, all right. We have what you're going to see is going to look exactly like the game, almost exactly like the game. I'll point out the differences, but almost like the game you guys are playing today, and there's a reason for that. We're using the front end client as our uh, as our benchmark so that we can just log in with the current front end client to test all of the back end functionality. We want all that to continue working. And be testable. So we didn't want to break everything and then try to put it all back together and not have any good way to test it. So first things first, the big thing we've been working on over the last year is the back end. And the reason I prioritized that was it is a one-to-one replacement with Fallen Earth Classic right now, which means at some point we will take the old um, legacy service offline and we can just replace them with our brand new rewritten services. And so that was very intentional because the legacy services just they don't run incredibly well. They're way out of date. We have to run them on virtual machines, and they require a bunch of hand holding to keep them online. There's a reason for that. They're just ancient, running on a super old version of Linux that doesn't even exist anymore. So job number one is to get the new servers finished, test them, and swap them out because the current client you guys are playing is 100% compatible with the new servers. And so that's what I'll show off, me running around in the current legacy client against the new services. And then I'll point out the places where things are very clearly broken and not working correctly. But that's development. So I think you guys might want to see that. And so we'll get into a couple questions just because I think some of them tie into a little bit about what I'm talking about there. And so the first question that came up from the community was, what's the current status of sort of the resolution of the duping issue on Fallen Earth Classic duping? Um, just for everybody's sake, when you guys see um, lag on the servers, it is primarily caused by duping. So unfortunately, we've got a couple bad actor players that get on and they just hit that duping bug like crazy, and it literally causes the servers to grind to a halt. So um, uh, I think unfortunately we've got some folks for APV sitting on the stream. I mentioned at the top of the stream that we're going to exclusively focus on Fallen Earth for this stream. I Those guys don't get enough love as it is. It's been I think 10 months, more than 10 months since the last stream. So I wanted to do a little something for them today, just give them an update on Fallen Earth. We'll do APB shortly. We've got another stream planned for APV. So anybody here who joined, I think we had the title mislabeled, and I think it said APV. So apologies, guys. This one's just going to be Fallen Earth. So back to the question. The question was about the duping bug. It is unfortunately something we're not going to be able to fix in the Fallen Earth Classic servers. It's a significant amount of coding, and it's sort of a pervasive problem. Not just There's a bunch of different ways to trigger the bug, and so our primary focus has really been on the new servers because we feel like we can fix it pretty easily there. And so it's just where that's at. But again, I wanted to also tie into, occasionally we'll see these big tailspins with lag and the servers grinding to a halt, and that is unfortunately largely because of someone on the server abusing the duping stuff. It's also worth mentioning that items obtained through duping they're not going to carry over. We've talked a little bit about what what our plans are for the new version of Fallen Earth, and I want to, as much as possible, I want to carry over people's accounts and everything they've spent time and energy on, but we're absolutely going to draw a line on stuff that was duped, and we're going to see if we can't eliminate that off those accounts. Frankly, any accounts that if there's a question there where some items on the account were obviously duped and we can prove it, then we're just going to wipe the account and those people have to start over. So I if you're interested in playing the game in the future and you want to keep your progression, then I recommend you get rid of the stuff off your account that you duped, because that's a great way to get it deleted. Um, that's a great question I saw in chat. I'm going to get to that. The next, I think, big question that came up from the community that I also want to just talk through was beta testing. It said, will there be a beta testing period for the Fallen Earth remake or remaster? How far along is the front end part of things? So I'll talk to that next. So we're actually quite far along. I'm going to show some video. Um, Again, primary focus right now is just the back end. So what is good and bad about that? What's good about that is you can just spin up the client. We'll get everybody a beta test client. It's just going to be a specialized version of the main client that we have now, and we'll open test servers so people can get on and help us stress test the new services, because they will need a bunch of that when we're ready. And so I think we might end up even doing like some early alpha testing, um, with the ability for people to get in and break things. The problem right now is it's very, very easy to crash the servers because there are still some bugs that are pretty easy to hit. So it's not worth spinning up 50, 60 people to go jump around on the servers and then have one person accidentally crash them, and then unfortunately it takes a bit to restart them, especially in their current mode where we have everything kind of running off the same machine. That's a bit slower to start up. So um, but once we get there, I'm excited because I think we're not too far away from being able to let the community get in and start kicking the tires themselves. Um, let's see here. I definitely see some chat, so I'm gonna park that, and I'll come back if I see some stuff in there that I feel is worth kind of touching back on. I'll come back to that. But um, Tim, why don't we go ahead and we'll just start playing the video, and then I can talk through it, uh, and you guys can kind of see again kind of where we're at. This is pretty short. I frankly had to back out a bunch of stuff that's in development to get this made. Um, so I wanted a little more here, wasn't able to get it, but this will again kind of give you an idea where we're at.
All right, let me try to make room for everybody.
Right. So I can't see the video on my screen because we're streaming it. Have we started that, Tim?
Yeah, it's going.
All right, great. So one of the things, we're going to do this out of sync, so I'm going to hopefully talk over the right bits. One of the things you'll notice right up, we have a bunch of naked characters on my account. Unfortunately, it's I inherited a lot of these characters. They came with from the team that did the development. So this is all running on a development backend with development characters, things like that. Many of them are naked because they kept stripping out all the equipment. So I'm going to jump on my test character here and run around a bit. One of the first things you'll notice right off the bat is as I run up to, I take a quick look around, but I run up to some of the questers, and these guys are in the wrong location. And so you'll see that they're spawning above the ground where they're supposed to be. At some point, I actually run past them. I run to where they're supposed to be. They're not there, but there is a bug that is it's a Z height bug where they're spawning too high. So effectively, the game says, "Oh, I can't spawn them in the middle of a mountain, so I'm going to just shoot them to the top instead of putting them they're in this like mini little zone. You can see it on the map. Yep, yep. Um, you'll see that those guys are not in the right spot. I think I pop up the quest menu. You'll see that that's in debug mode. Um,
Maybe we can
and
help each other.
I'm obviously flagged as an administrator, so I can go through and debug quests and see how those are working. There's some bits here that I will touch on that are really important later, but I'm kind of hoping that the stream uh, that the stream evens out here, because I hear some people mentioning that it's buffering or lagging. So hopefully that clears itself up. So anyway, I run down in that area. I come back. I frankly, one of the big things I'm working on is the tutorial, and that's where a lot of game systems all come together. And unfortunately, the tutorial is it's a ton of work to get it working. We're very, very close now, but it's running scripting systems and a bunch of other pieces that are required there. Great. We're going to adjust the delay here a little bit to see if we can fix some of the buffering. We had the sound up a little too much there. I've got Twitch muted so that I don't hear myself echoing. So a lot of the initial stats, initial skills, and initial equipment are all given to you as you go through the tutorial. And without the tutorial working, it's incredibly hard to generate test characters. So I have to go into the database and manually give them clothing and stuff like that. So we don't hate clothes, but just a lot of my test characters are naked because we can't get all the way through the tutorial. In this case, this character has 2 test items, I think, on him that I'm playing with, and one of them is actually a dev item, and the other is I think it's just the axe from the tutorial, but sort of playing with that to kind of get through things. Once the tutorial works, though, it's quite nice in that combat, questing, picking things up, looting. There's just a bunch of things you do in the tutorial. In fact, you basically do most everything you do in the regular game in the tutorial. So at some point here in the video, and I can't see where Tim restarted it.
You are currently. It just restarted.
It just restarted. Okay. All right. At some point, I ended up doing a little bit of combat, so you can kind of see where that's at. I've got that gun there, and we're shooting prairie chickens. In this version that I'm running here, I slimmed down. I loaded all the objects in the world, but I didn't load all the creatures. It just takes way too long. And so I just have, I think, a handful of prairie chickens and maybe blade dancers. Let's see here. Yeah, someone posted in the chat here that the opening of the game is quite cool. I think this is their second tutorial. I don't know the history on this project as much, but the tutorial itself is fascinating as a dev. It's all scripted. 100% of it is scripted in their backend scripting language that they use to build out encounters and boss fights. And frankly, I think even some of the PvP, most of the PvP mode is all scripted. And so the extent to which they were able to create that tutorial is just crazy because it's all compiled on the fly. And so one question, it dovetails nicely actually into one question that came up, and that was, like, how much do we think that something like Fallen Earth, I think the actual question was, do you think this 2-decade-old game can compete with modern MMOs and attract a next gen of players, and sort of what changes would you make? It's not quite 2 decades. I'll say that first right off the bat. I mean, it is definitely 15 years old, so it's getting up there a little bit long in the tooth. But that scripting system that they used to extend all these features, I mean, they did so much crazy stuff with it. is really cool. And we've actually, as you know, in the remake, we've taken that one step further, and we've improved on that system, and really made it more performant. We made it run better, but also gave it some really crazy hooks to do even more than it um, can right now. Um, yeah, I see some comments about the Quest NPC. So the experience there is not as much the problem. I'm still working through combat bugs and things. One of the things you'll see if you pay close attention when I'm fighting that prairie chicken is I hit it a couple times and its health regens crazy fast. You can see it in real time just regenning its health and it never dies. So those are the kind of things we're just working through logical bugs and issues. There were some kind of hinky things in how the attribute system works. It is both one of the coolest systems in the game and also sort of one of the most frustrating systems to work with from a code standpoint. And so a lot of these systems will get in, we'll port them exactly as is, as best we can, because this isn't a new language, so it's not in C++ anymore. But we'll port it as close as we can get, and then we'll overhaul it. So once we kind of get it where it's working and we can kind of see it like, all right, that's sort of there. Um, we have to overhaul it because a lot of the ways they did things back in C++ don't really work or perform well in current modern day languages. And so they have these, I mean, they have these pretty insane, for those non-coders, they're big loops where they just iterate through every object and check every one of them looking for the object that they want to act on. So if I'm trying to hit something, that just like spin up the big giant loops, and so we've had to add more parallel processing and multi-threaded support there, and do other tricks that we can do now that they clearly couldn't do back then. And so the other thing I should mention is that many, if not all, of the GM commands are offline right now. They don't work. So I just have been working on most of the core systems, and then as I need to implement GM commands or administrative commands, things like giving yourself items, things like that, I put them in, or I go through and debug them and figure out why they're not working. And so I was able to give this character the axe and the gun and run through and test those sorts of things. So I think we're just going to kind of let that loop a little bit again. It's pretty short, but I'm just reading the chat and chuckling over some of the stuff that's there. Feel free to put some questions there, guys, if you want. And if I do, apologize in advance if I don't get to them. But I'm going to go back to some of the questions that were submitted from the community, and then as I think of things. But I do want to point out that I do think there are some amazing systems inside of the Fallen Earth code that we're in the middle of overhauling and doing some good stuff with. But I think that's how this game is going to compete. I'm not going to get into some of the details, but there are some really cool ideas for rebalancing the game, or frankly overhauling the game, and various pieces of it. It is one of the other questions that was asked. It's a series of questions, I think. Will the game become more mainstream? And then this particular person goes on to to list about 6 or 7 places where proper mission rewards like chips and materials, resources being more abundant for crafting, versus having to run out and hunt for RNG nodes to find what they're looking for, more options to grind faction. And without going into the deep dive on that question, I'm gonna say absolutely. I mean, I think this is a 15-year-old MMO, and I think it reflects that. I mean, it reflects what MMORPGs looked like 15 years ago, and so from nowadays, there aren't many MMORPGs left, but the ones that have done well have overhauled the grind. They've done a lot of things with instancing. They've done a lot of better, I would say, better design techniques. So that's I'll leave it at that. But yeah, there's going to have to be some overhaul here. So I do want to clarify a couple things in case you're joining us a little late. Um, what you're seeing on the screen is the Fallen Earth Classic front end. Um, and so there's no visual improvements at all. What we're working on right now is the back end, and what I explained is we're using the legacy front end as our test to make sure we have 100% compatibility on the back end, that things are working and they're working correctly. So um, please don't misconstrue what you're seeing on this screen as some sort of upgrade. Nothing there visually has been touched. It is exactly the legacy client. That's not Unity. Um, uh, so anyway, just know that we're not touting any sort of tech upgrade yet on the front end. There has been a bunch of work done in Unity, but I didn't necessarily want to focus on that for this stream. We showed a lot of it, actually, nearly a bunch of all the video we have of a bunch of the Unity stuff the last live stream, and I think I talked through some of that. I'm happy to talk through more of it again, but they're almost two completely different work streams, because one of them is just pure visual upgrade, talking to the legacy servers, and the other is um, all server backend upgrade, which is 100% compatible with the legacy client. So we just wanted to make sure we didn't mess anything up. For those that don't do development, if you aren't careful and lock down the requirements for what you're working on, you can easily get into just massive scope creep and areas where stuff just spirals out of control and you have no good test cases. So with a game this large, it is massive, massive, massive. It was really important to lock down what we're working on and when. Otherwise, this would just never happen. Be too slow. I did see just now on the chat there, are we going to try and keep the background loading in maps and sectors? Yeah, absolutely. I think that is, I think it's a core part of the game, frankly. Part of the fun is running from, one end of the Grand Canyon to the other without ever loading. And so definitely I want to keep that. It's tricky, you're right. I mean, it's they did a lot of stuff to it, but to get that feature. But I think it's kind of a core feature, never loading, basically. And the servers were designed to do that. There's no reason to throw it out. I want to keep it. Let's see. We go back to the questions. I'm gonna go up to this one. Okay, so as for Fallen Earth Classic, will we be seeing any more events or cash up items being brought into the regular game through merchants, or are we in pure maintenance mode until the remake's release? We've definitely, I would say this, it's a two-part answer there. We are working on trying to get more holiday content in. I think that's important, and I know you guys enjoy, some of those events or just a change of pace. Our priority is on the back end right now, so we're not working on any content, and it's right now just the way that the shape the game's in. It's really not possible to move things around too much. There's a little bit we can do to try to bring things through to merchants, things like that, but it's just not something we're super focused on. Let's see here. So again, I'm kind of checking the chat, checking my notes. So I'm not going to jump into gameplay updates yet. I think that there are 3 work streams. I'll outline those here. One is the server backend. That's getting almost all of the focus because I want to get that done. And then secondarily is the new front end, and mostly that's visual. It's meant to be 100% compatible with the backend, like I already said. But, and this is worth noting, the patching system in Fallen Earth is pretty robust, and the client largely, it can be affected by the backend. You can push out all kinds of content. So the plan is also to do some new designs, some new weapons, and do some updates, and even maybe go look at some wonky parts of the game and see if we can streamline a little bit of that. Uh, Sure. So Nautical's made a great point. We could certainly organize these. We have a bunch of videos actually from the last stream and stuff, and we've talked about trying to do something on a regular basis, um, if we can, to just kind of put these up because you guys don't get enough kind of information. The team's just been busy. So having said that, it's also, it's worth pointing out that 95% of the team was focused on New Horizon more recently for APB, and a large chunk of the team is working on the next patch for APB. So we're having to split resources here, but it's coming along. It's actually I'm pretty excited about Fallen Earth, where it's at, where it's been. So I'm hoping we can we can get there. I really want to ship this part because I think the current servers just don't perform very well. I said that at the beginning of the stream here. We had some more questions in terms of I've already addressed them a little bit with my previous answers, but will weapons ever be considered for a proper overhaul of the DPS values? Will heavy weapons mains like this person get some love? I'm really not going to step into design questions yet, just because we're still pulling a new design team together for Fallen Earth that can go through and properly address those questions and issues. Because I'm sure you guys understand that is a super complicated job, rebalancing all these classes. But we're going to try to do some. The game absolutely needs some overhauling, so I think you can expect some mana change there. One question that comes up quite a bit, I'll skip ahead here, is people asking, is there any way that the community can help fund Fallen Earth Classic or the Fallen Earth remake? And I've had different answers over the years. We are not monetizing any of Fallen Earth Classic. That's intentional, just because I would want the game in a much better place before we start turning any of the money on. It's just a labor of love for us. We run it on spare servers that we have out of our LA data center, and so we keep it online. It is purely for you guys to enjoy. A lot of people requested it, so we put it back online while we're working on the new version. I think it's also worth noting, Little Orbit has a couple, I'll say two, previously crowdfunded games that we still need to ship. So we definitely, I want to get those out the door because those fan bases have waited and paid money for those before we get into any sort of more crowdfunding stuff. So that's my long answer for saying we're probably not going to do any community monetization yet. It's just not quite there in terms of where the game's at. Big question I hear in game is a time frame. So there's two questions here in chat. I'll address both. I'll start with the one. The time frame's tricky. I could say like here's a bit more of a status. Like every service, the protocol backend for talking between the services, there's like 16 of them, I think, is just rock solid. It's right as rain. Packets are solid. We don't drop any packets. It's super fast. So I'm happy about that. The code is functionally complete. The porting has all been done. There are bugs like you wouldn't believe, and some of them are needle in a haystack bugs. Some of them are pretty obvious, but we're mostly just going feature by feature and working out the bugs. So with the tutorial, for instance, I talked about that earlier. Instancing is where we're kind of hitting some snags. So you need to be able to basically create a single player version of a dungeon to be able to do the tutorial. And so we're kind of working through those bugs. As we work through the tutorial, we'll fix more bugs there. But hopefully that gives a little bit of an update. Unfortunately, what that means is, when you're bug fixing, it's very difficult to give ETAs or timeframes because, 99 bugs on the wall, take one down, um, pass around, and you end up with 110 bugs on the wall. So, I think, we're working through it as fast as we can, and certainly, I'd say the one thing I think that I'll be able to give more of a time frame on would be alpha testing, sort of, putting a server up and potentially letting people from the community get in and, hit it and do some things there. I did see the second question I saw was from a dev or anybody who is interested maybe in working on the project or helping us out. Um, at the risk of getting flooded there, sure, send your information over. Maybe reach out to our community manager. Please don't give it to other players. That's a bad idea. But our verifiable community manager, uh, uh, I would maybe pass your information along, and we'll see. I think if uh, we are absolutely. I think in the game design area.
We can help each other.
That's definitely an area where I'm looking. So I know the person that posted was asked about mid-level technical game design position.
Just
So
get back on
we're certainly looking happy to work with folks that have a familiarity with the game. Uh, that's where I think you get the best feedback from. Um, let's see. There are a couple other questions in here. There was questions about, are there plans to expand minor factions or give factionless characters more things to do. I can't really get into specifics there. That's a little bit further down the road and more of a design question. Some other, again, very hyper specific questions here. One about the weak anabolic enhancer and whether it's going to be added to rewards, that sort of thing. Again, we're not far enough really for me to get into those kind of questions because I think we need some design feedback to really touch those. But I would say the next big update, we are in the holiday swing now. This is where we're working on the Halloween event for APB, and we've got the Halloween. We've got the holidays coming up for Fallen Earth, and our spin on the Grinch, which is fun for Fallen Earth. And so we'll be putting those back online, um, that sort of thing. Um, let's see here. There's one at the top that I actually missed. Frankly, it's if Fallen Earth re-releases, would it be pay to play or free to play? I think generally right now it's going to have to be free to play. I think just subscriptions for games are a tough sell to the general audience. There's certainly some core fan bases that love them, um, but I think it generally would have to be free to play, at least. Potentially free to play with some sort of premium that takes you above a certain level or something. Um, so as mentioning there's a bug that happened in development basically where she shot a tracer the entire town of everywhere came in. Yeah. Um, we've seen some crazy stuff, frankly. Whole, anyway, I won't get into it, but definitely one of the things I notice a lot in the port, without getting too technical, is that some of the notation for doing things in C++ is the exact backwards or appears to be backwards when you port to another language. And I'm noticing that some of the dev team, we were working partially with an external dev team on this. Some of them reverse the logic. So a lot of what we find are actually literally backwards logic, um, where we finally hunt down the bug and it's just the logic's exactly the opposite of what it should be. That ties into one other question. It's toward the end of what I have here in front of me, and that was, are we open to working with devs that are overseas or in Europe? Are we open to external devs, more devs on the project, that sort of thing?
We can help each
Um,
other.
so I'll talk a little bit. I mean, we tried some external devs on this project, and full disclosure, it did not go well. There was a lot of difficulty communicating with them, and the work was very lumpy. I would say some developers were really good and some were not. And there's, these are complex. I'm sure you guys can imagine they're really, really complex behaviors. They have to be, paid attention to um, very closely. And so I'm not opposed to working with external developers that are maybe overseas. But one of the reasons that the game is maybe not as far along as I would hope is because we tried it. We tried kind of working. Um, uh, uh, we tried working with an external group, and it it just didn't work out very well. But again, I'm not opposed to it. We continue to have some relationships with external dev teams that are overseas, and I love those guys. They're hardworking and great. Just this one particular team that we worked with didn't work out. Let's see, old tunes. So I'm not entirely sure what the question is. If you're asking whether we're going to support existing characters, the answer is yes. The goal here is in some way, shape, or form to let you guys take your current characters from Fallen Earth Classic forward into the remake. I have a couple asterisks next to that will spell out a little more related to duping and other things, and it's also kind of our best effort. So if there are things that just aren't going to be feasible, then I reserve the right to not, then some things won't come across. But I recognize, some people have been playing this for 15 years, and there's a big investment there, and we certainly respect that. So I want to make sure we're um, being, considerate of that. Um, I know that there is a fairly big debate about a wipe for the servers. So I'll address it a little bit. I mean, I'm on the fence, just like I think the community is, where half the community would love to see a wipe of the classic servers just to breathe some life into the game. That means everybody has to grind out and go and rebuild their characters. Um, and of course, right, the other half of the community is like, no, they're horrified. They don't want that. Um, and so yeah, I get it. If we had enough resources to sort of run both side by side, I would do that. I'd do kind of one um, where people can start fresh and just call it a frontier server and let people have that, and then one where all of the existing characters are. But we're certainly not going to do anything without talking to the community. And yeah, I tend to be on the side of not wiping it because um, I feel like there's just people have invested and it's grindy. It's until we can redesign some of that stuff,
Maybe we can help
um,
each other.
there are aspects of the game that are not as fun. So um, uh, I do want to. Whale for Crab has also asked a couple times. Will all zones ship
Just
with the
get
remake?
back
It's a
online.
great question. Right now, everything's coming across. We're working on the entire game. So if I had to take a guess, which it's my best guess, um, the answer would be yes. All the zones will come across um, for the remake. Uh, if stuff comes up and for whatever reason we can put the game back online early if we don't do certain zones, then I'll totally consider that, because I think just getting something online that you guys can start playing with would be a lot of fun and a bit of a change of pace. So we'll certainly try to do that. But right now it just looks like I touched on this briefly, but a lot of the customized aspects of zones are based on this scripting system, and we've entirely ported that scripting system. So it was a mountain of work, but it is all working. So there's nothing that shouldn't come across, and I say that knowing that there's still there's just 700 and some odd custom scripts for a bunch of different things, custom characters and bosses and zones and event behaviors, things like that. Um, so, not sure. Most of that should come across and work. That's the long-winded answer that I think all the zones will ship. Um, uh, yeah, we look. Steimer pointed out. We have two copies of the database. We have the database that we took a copy of right when we took the original game offline, and then after that, right, we put Classic back online, and we have a new database that has continued on, but there are 2 copies there, so I'm not sure. I'll have to we'll have to evaluate all that, um, and figure out which one we want to run forward with. I'm sure my goal would be the original database, because there was a lot more in there for players. Something you'll notice, this is a great example of what's not working right now. But in the video, you'll see as I'm fighting the prairie chickens, the zoom is lacking the scope graphics. So like it doesn't come up in a ring, and where the rest of the screen turns dark. And then you can see in the top there that the ammo is also not being reported properly. So normally you'd see your guns ammo up at the top there, and that's not it's not working. So it's just some of the combat stuff that we're currently working through right now to make sure all the messages back and forth uh, are working. Let's make sure I didn't miss any questions here. We're getting up. We're about 50 minutes in. So if you guys have any questions, now would be a great time to throw them in the chat. Um, yeah, I gotcha. Totally understood. Yeah, I see Steimer's comment was more about if we run in,
Maybe we can
we
help
end up
each
running
other.
two, uh, we run 2 servers, one original, one wipe, that sort of thing. So, um,
Just get back alive.
yeah, I'll speak. So I'm going to butcher these names. Keljai, I think. I did speak to this a little bit. We spun up a very large project with an external team to handle the back end part of the game and getting that all done. Um, didn't didn't work as expected, unfortunately. And but I did say that the current status of the back end, at least, is it is code complete, which means every piece of code has been ported from the original C++ um, over to the new environment, but it's littered with bugs. So it's just we're just working through every single test case right now, kind of grinding through various systems like combat and movement and mob spawning, and call them actor generators. So there's just all kinds of different systems that we've been gradually working through. Um, so that's the update. The alpha is the closest thing in, and I absolutely would love to get some of the community folks. I mean, truthfully, the community is about 250 people, which is perfect for running kind of an alpha test. So when we get there, we'll put an invite out, and we'll get everybody who's active on Discord. Certainly, we'd love to have people um, get in and kick the tires there. Um, so alpha will be the next thing. There's another question here about a vendor in game in lieu of the marketplace. It's tricky. Our ability to manage the game in its legacy form is quite difficult. These are very old servers. They run on a version of Linux that doesn't exist, and our ability to update the code is just it's really tough. So, taking things like an online marketplace, um, uh, and then moving it in game is it's almost impossible, it'd be a bunch of code enhancements. Um, I did answer your question, Whaleful Crab. Yes, the goal is to get all the zones to ship in the remake. It looks pretty good right now. Um, good comments from Evan Prime about importing characters and renaming. I personally also I get it, the frustration with characters that have been deleted and those names being held anyway. We'll work through something like that, releasing names that there's the database is littered with dead characters holding on to names and things. So we'll get that cleaned up. Um, uh, let's see, the original release had an account, and I still have some gamers for Curiosity. Gotcha. I appreciate that feedback, Max. It's just going to be a question of what feels the best to the most players, right? So, um, but I appreciate that you're saying, hey, I'd be willing to start over. There's a lot of garbage in the database from the duping issues and things like that. So that's going to be the biggest challenge, is just winnowing that out. And frankly, like I said on the stream, if you've got duped items, you can almost certainly expect that your stuff will get deleted, and you will have to start over from scratch. It's easier to just wipe that account um, than try to sort out what was duped and what wasn't. Um, I'll jump to the bottom here. Well, let me just look through a couple more. But Polmarian has asked a really interesting question. Um, let's see here. Can we get see? Can I send you coordination to some lovely location where you can ride with a horse and make an atmosphere? Yeah, this is video. We captured it about 20 minutes, literally before the stream. Um, Bone Claw is kind of my test zone. So when I'm getting in and looking at various things, that's just been an easy place to pop into. There are a lot more scenic locations, and frankly, weather is one of the systems we're still debugging. So you'll notice we're not getting a ton of weather going on right now, and time of day. So certainly the game has looked better even in its legacy form. This is pretty rough. So um, let's see. Definitely experience with the game would come in handy to test. Um, Max asked about improvements to jumping, climbing, animations. Um, there are some things we want to do there and have looked at. The animation system in Fallen Earth is incredibly old and incredibly clunky. The blend between animations is pretty bad. I mean, it's 15 years old, so let's not knock it. They did an amazing job for what they had at the time. But nowadays, animation state machines and blending is just so much more sophisticated. So I certainly would love to overhaul some of that. But I want to jump into Palmarian's question, and that is, are your props and characters in FBX format? The answer is no. Every aspect of Fallen Earth is a custom proprietary engine. Which we ended up buying. So we have a decent sized repository. We have the entire code base, and we have all the runtime models and everything, but we don't have a complete archive of the source models. We have some of them, but they're wildly out of date. I think they run. I can load source models in 3D Max 2016. So we have some of the Max models, but they require a specialized plugin to export assets because the game runs on its own format. So they're not FBX. Having said that, we did a amount of work to dump the files from their proprietary format into FBX. So we now do have, I think, 99% of the assets in FBX now. Those are all loaded in Unity, and we're running around, and but all that had to be custom because the format that is actually used at runtime it's not a public format. It's proprietary. Um, I'm a fan of Blender. I worked, my first job actually was as a technical programmer, technical artist programmer. So I worked on tools a lot as a kid. And so we've been able to move and sort of clean up a ton of the assets. Um, but as you may well know, some of the things that are tricky are Fallen Earth runs in a right-handed coordinate system, and most graphics systems run in a left-handed coordinate system now. So a lot of the assets had to be actually adjusted for the coordinate system as well. Let's see. So Logan said, still would be cool when the main the old game sectors slowly come on. I'll probably need expeditions and new sectors. Yep. Definitely some fun things to play with there. I think it's something to think about. Maybe we stage the release of some of those further out zones. Like Sector 4, I'm not sure was even ever completed, um, but I know they're, each of Sector 1, 2, 3, they're pretty banded, meaning the level range is pretty specific for those. So we could do something as the community levels up and kind of goes into each new sector there, but super fun. I look forward to getting players in here. It's I would say Fallen Earth has definitely been in the passion project category for us in terms of trying to take it and overhaul it and get it back into what I would say like supportable state. But it's coming along. It's my favorite sector. Truth be told, I did not make it. I did not make it out. I capped out sector one, and I didn't make it into sector two very far when I was playing. Um, I've seen the game from the coding side extensively, but like right now, I spend a lot of time in Boneclaw just because it's easy to run around and test everything there. I look forward to getting out into some of the other fun towns and locations, frankly, they're just more fun. But um, it's a loaded question. I didn't make it as far into the game as a player. I played when it first came out, and then moved on to WoW, and then came back once we had acquired it and played under an anonymous account just for a little bit, about a month or two, pretty heavily, because I wanted to hang out, and it's a fun game. I still to this day there's so much about it that I love, and frankly there's a fair bit that's untapped. It's really a shame because there's some amazing, crazy systems under the hood, and with just a little bit of love and polish, they'd be amazing. So I look forward to that. So we're at 8 o'clock, guys. If there's any last minute questions, I'll go ahead and take maybe one or two more. But I'm tying up my producer. He's driving for me right now, so I can talk and watch video and flip back and forth between chat and questions that the community put in. Hopefully, I got to everybody's questions. I did skim through them.
Maybe we can help each other.
I think I got to. I see the time frame on the remaking.
Get back alive.
That was in my. Yeah, Steimer, we're going to do the same Halloween event. There just isn't enough bandwidth on the team to do what we're trying to do here, plus something new. I really look forward to cracking open some of the design tools with the new servers because they're so much easier to work on. We've completely overhauled, and if you guys didn't get to see the stream from last year, I think late November, early December, we showed off some of the design tools that we built. Real fun stuff. So I look forward to that. Hold on. My voice is a little raspy here. Let's see. So rough ETA on alpha tests. Yeah, I'd say at this pace, I mean, in late 2023, we had a messy server code base that wasn't complete, and we had a bunch of tools, a bunch of stuff we showed off, which is great. We now have a complete code base. We're just going through bugs, so I think it's going to be, probably Q4, 2025. Hopefully, we'll just cross our fingers and hope we can kind of keep the resources where they're at. And how is the commitment financially covered on the rework? It's purely investment. It is us, putting our blood, sweat, and tears and believing in the project, and frankly, just it's being spent against. I'm not going to answer the last one. I do. Sure, I'll answer the last one. Yes. So I guess it's a pretty tight knit community. You guys know who each other are. Occasionally, I will pop in on live, mostly if I'm testing something. So if you see someone you don't recognize, it is probably me running around, seeing something in live, and then popping off, maybe popping on, testing something, getting back off, testing it in dev to go back and forth and just kind of make sure something is working correctly. Yeah, you from your Logan said, may the bugs in the back end not be a pain in the ass for me and the team. They already are. We grind through a ton of them pretty quickly each day, but occasionally you get a little needle in a haystack type things where because it's 16 different services. So when you have a bug where it's something coming through from the front end right into we have this kind of distribution server that then disperses packets. Um, and when you're three servers deep and something uh, is misfiring, it's sometimes tricky because you have to kind of bounce around debug servers one at a time. um, cool. I thank you, Gary. Let me I'll have the team and Emily send that over to me so that in the future when I take videos and stuff, I'll spin up versions. Yeah, I look.
Maybe we can help each
If I could snap my fingers and get a slick PBR version with all the same vibe and atmosphere that the game has now,
Just
but
getting back.
refresh graphics that just look a little better, and then clean, performant servers on the back end with a little bit of an upgrade on the design, I feel like the game would be fantastic. So, uh, Imran, yeah, I think I've been invited. My schedule is bonkers. Frankly, I work 18 hours a day, so it's a little tough to try to carve out the time. I try to get on. I know on the APB side, I did a car show in game and hung out with players more recently, but I will do my best. If there's an opportunity, I certainly will throw it out to the community and say, "Hey, I'm gonna get on." Um, I've been in game with players before during certain events, mostly when we were counting down and taking the server offline, and I got on for a couple of anniversary events there. But yeah, it's to Logan's point, it's there's a lot there. The team was very large that created this game, so we're doing our best with what we have, and certainly committed to getting it put back together here. Um, we have not. I've not looked at any of the shared vaults yet. The team has not looked at that. Mostly, we're just looking at core systems. So attributes, skills, combat, equipment, obviously movement, just all the basics, log in, log out, things like that. Just trying to make sure all that stuff's right as rain, and then we'll move out into some of the more economic pieces. Buying and selling vendors, quests. We're working a little bit on quests now. Instancing is what we're working on for the tutorial, and then things like guilds have been parked. There's definitely some stuff that still needs to be finished on guilds, guild vaults. Some of those aspects of the game. But so I think that's where we'll wrap things. I appreciate everybody coming out today and taking a look at where we are. I always say this at the end of every stream. We'll try to do more of these. Most of them come down to my time and just how much time I have to get on and do these things because they take a fair bit of prep. But I always enjoy them, and I certainly want you guys to know where we're at and what things are, how things are going, and when I can give timelines. I'm not afraid of doing that. I just want to make sure we have all the right information in front of us. Uh, uh, I'm just watching the little orbit count here. But I do again. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll do another one soon, hopefully.